This is BBC News, the headlines. A third wave of coronavirus infections is starting to sweep across the European Union. New lockdown measures have come into force in Poland and across large parts of France, including around the capital, Paris. Switzerland is among other countries extending their restrictions. European leaders have shown support for the AstraZeneca jab. The French Prime Minister, Jean Castex, received the vaccine and urged the public to do the same after EU regulators found it didn't cause blood clots. Here in the UK, Boris Johnson also received his first AstraZeneca injection. President Biden has appealed for unity during a visit to Atlanta, saying many Asian Americans now live in fear. His comments came in the wake of a killing spree at massage parlours in Atlanta, which left 8 people dead, 6 of them women of Asian descent.
With the global population likely to rise to 10 billion by 2050, how are we going to feed everyone sustainably? Now on BBC World News, James Wong examines how we can all transform the food system simply through the choices we make as consumers. Follow the food.
Follow the food, in association with Corteva Agriscience.
Modern agriculture has given us the safest, the most affordable, and the most plentiful food supply in the history of our species.
But with our global population growing at current rates, some have estimated that we'll have to produce more food in the next 30 years than we have in the entire history of humanity. The biggest threats to face our species are things like climate change, biodiversity loss, and soil loss.
But there is one group of people who can save us from that future: farmers.
So I'm on a journey into the future of our food.
Oh, miracle! Amazing!
To witness for myself what the best and brightest minds are doing.
Everybody wants a fix. Well, the fix is nature itself.
To avert this imminent food security crisis.
We need to start to think now in order to solve the problem that we'll have in the future.
I'll question received wisdom.
Why not just get rid of the cows?
And interrogate how our food supply chains can respond to unparalleled events like the COVID-19 pandemic.
Technology is going to have an extraordinarily large part to play in the food chain, and I'm really excited about it.
Wow, look at this. So here's what I want to know. If we could radically rethink how we treat our land, what we grow, and how we produce it, if we could not just change our food system, but our whole planet for the better.
So far on my journey, I've discovered some of the extraordinary work underway.
Look at that.
Across the whole of the agricultural system to ensure food security for all in the future.
But there is a question that we don't often consider, and that's why is the food system that we currently have set up like this in the first place? Well, the answer is it's ultimately down to us, the consumer. The whole food system is really set up to provide us with what we demand of it.
So if we have some power in this equation, what can we do to help make sure that our food system is sustainable, secure, and delivers the nutrition we need? To begin to answer that question, I find myself heading back to one of the most diverse places on the planet.
Kew is absolutely my happy place.
I'm catching up with a colleague of mine who might help me understand why we consume the food we do.
So there's roughly 50,000 edible plants on Earth, and yet more than half our calories come from the seeds of just 3 grass species. Why did that happen? How did we get here?
That's a very interesting question. I think it's circumstance. I think if you go back that far in the whole domestication and agricultural developments, it was a tough time. So I think it was actually what was available, how could it be used?
So thousands of years ago, we start to see the simplification of our diets due to necessity.
If solutions were found, then those were followed. So if a particularly tasty variety of something emerged, then you thought, well, let's keep the seeds of that for next year or propagate that from year on year. And so already, thousands of years ago, you got the simple domestication.
But they didn't have all the tools and technology to be able to systematically select for better options in the way that we do today. So why do we carry on doing this?
We've got, as you know, 9 billion people to feed. We need to find nutritious food to feed them with.
But we, the consumer, don't have to be a passive part of the global food system. We have the power to influence what is planted in or grazes on the world's fields. Each purchase we make is like a vote for the food we want to eat. And those decisions can have a dramatic impact on how diverse, resilient, and nutritious our food supply is. But how many of us really think about that when we're doing our shopping? Amanda.
How are you?
Yeah, really good.
It's so nice to meet you.
In her book, The Fate of Food, journalist Amanda Little explores how we can feed humanity sustainably as climate change bites. How much power does the consumer really have?
I think the consumer has a lot of power, and it's interesting. Many of the major ag and crop producers look at consumer trends. They understand that millennials and Gen Z, for example, are really interested in alternative products. They see a future of disruption in major sectors of the food system as we know it. It needs to rise from the bottom up. It needs to come from the top down. There's so much shift and change, radical change in what we eat and how we'll grow it in the coming decades. And it's going to come both from consumers and, I think, from large-scale producers. COVID-19 has really exposed a lot of the problems in our food system. We've seen consumers responding to those problems. I mean, in the United States, just in the last 6 months, we've seen more than a doubling of demand for alternative meats, for example. Consumers started stockpiling sustainable and stable food supply, and that has certainly driven investment in that sector. It's driven economies of scale, and consumers are very much behind that.
What Amanda says is interesting. Is it really possible we might see consumers beginning to make a substantial switch to plant-based meats? Approximately 80% of global agricultural land is dedicated to rearing livestock and growing the crops to feed them, generating up to 14% of all greenhouse gas emissions, yet produces less than 20% of our calories. The move can make a big impact on global warming. Ethan Brown is the founder of one of the companies whose growth is being fueled by the current consumer demand in plant-based protein.
So we founded Beyond Meat in early 2009, and the reason behind it was I was looking for an answer to a question I'd had for a long time, which is, do you need the animal to produce a piece of meat?
The company has developed a range of plant-based products designed to accurately mimic the texture and flavor of animal meat.
The consumer is beginning to hear more that there are reasons that they may want to reduce their consumption of animal protein. And at the same time, our technology is getting stronger and stronger so that we are able to build meat directly from plants in a way that's more compelling and convincing to the consumer's palate and sensory system.
One reason that shoppers might be switching could be down to one of the biggest problems facing our planet: climate change. It's an existential threat, and the plant-based meat market is demonstrating some impressive stats to combat this. At the University of Michigan, a recent study showed the Beyond Burger uses 99% less water, 93% less land, and produces 90% fewer fossil fuel emissions than a quarter pound of regular ground beef.
If you can get the price to the point where it's cheaper than animal protein, I think it becomes an unusual consumer that says, I still am not going to eat that.
Driving down the price of any product relies on scaling up and selling more, which is ultimately in the hands of us, the consumer. What we choose to spend our money on has the power to make significant changes at the front of the food chain. And with the demand for proteins like pork and chicken soaring in recent years due to the increasing affluence of some developing countries like China, the need for alternative protein is even more important.
I've never seen anything in my career where you could focus on one thing, get that to the center of the consumer's plate, and in doing so, you can simultaneously impact four things. You can impact human health, you can impact climate, you can impact natural resource use, and you can impact animal welfare, all by focusing on just one thing.
The whole topic of meat-free alternatives has really become a bigger part of the public conversation in recent years. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to replace meat. You don't necessarily have to be a vegan or even a vegetarian to include some of these products in your diet. And adding that as part of a suite of solutions, if done in the right way, could well be a way to reduce some of our carbon footprint.
I've come to Church Street Food Market, my local, to see whether shoppers here understand how our food choices have more profound consequences than simply the calories we eat.
So many beautiful things from all over the world. It's just abundance that our ancestors couldn't even dream of. Look at this stuff.
But I wonder how many of us ever consider what it takes to produce variety like this. To put that to the test, I'm using the Follow the Food calculator. It lets users take a short quiz to learn their carbon footprint, how much carbon dioxide is being produced by the foods they buy.
Right, select one protein you regularly enjoy as part of your weekly diet.
Yeah, chicken.
Okay, well, there we are, click.
I'll go for fish.
Okay. Next item, select one fruit or vegetable you regularly enjoy as part of your weekly diet. We've got apples. Oh wow, there we are. Our brains are connected.
Bananas definitely one.
Okay, calculate.
The calculator not only gives you an idea of your carbon footprint, but also where in the supply chain we're contributing to CO2 the most.
Well, your biggest factor here is chicken. It's the biggest impact is the fish there.
Eating healthy makes sense.
Fish is the biggest driver for you. Is that surprising to you?
It's shocking, definitely.
Of course, tests like this will have varied outcomes depending on where you are in the world, but used as a general guide, it really makes you think. Swapping our choice of protein alone from chicken to beans, for example, can bring a person's carbon footprint down by over 60%.
It's so interesting to hear the views and reactions of people in this market, and many of them had absolutely no idea the enormous impact their food choices can make.
But is this all we can do? Or as consumers, can we go even further to drive real change along the food chain? How are big brands responding? And how can innovation help us make positive and impactful choices? If you'd like to try out our carbon footprint calculator, head over to the BBC Follow the Food website and give it a go.
Follow the Food, in association with Corteva Agriscience.
All over the world, farmers are faced with an unreasonable challenge. Do more with less. Grow more food for more people, more sustainably, on less land, with less water, with less predictable weather. Sounds impossible, right? Actually, it's not. Corteva Agriscience helps farmers push what's possible, starting with this. Decades of research in every seed. Resilient from storm to drought, it's matched with the field where it'll yield the most crop. And not just the field. Zoom in, the acre. Let's talk data. Our tools help farmers know exactly when, where, and how much crop protection to apply. It's science, not guesswork. You'll still get these and these, but now they can be targeted with surgical precision. Built on 200 years of expertise, Corteva is the company farmers turn to see more, to know more, and to do more, with less.
So what do you love about your Always pan?
The nonstick, incredible. The built-in spatula rest, genius. I just learned to cook, and this pan makes it so easy.
the food. In association with Corteva Agriscience.
This time on Follow the Food, I'm discovering how the power we have as consumers could help build a more efficient, secure, nutritious, and environmentally friendly system right along the food chain. Today, I'm exploring whether consumers with better knowledge might make better decisions.
This modest industrial estate contains the seed of an idea that could empower consumers to make absolutely seismic shifts in how sustainably our food is produced. Hot off the press at this West Yorkshire printing firm is the latest innovation by globally recognized brand Quorn, a company that blazed a trail 35 years ago with a new source of protein made from fermented microfungi, which produces 90% less greenhouse gas emissions than beef. In 2020, the brand took the step of declaring carbon footprints on their packaging.
The company was born with a very strong purpose, which was doing good food for the people and the planet. The element of sustainability for us has always been very, very important. For the last 20 years, you have heard a lot about nutrition, new labeling, started to introduce the concept of nutrition on the label.
Yeah.
So our idea is we wanted to introduce the same message so that the consumer could understand the sustainability impact of the choices that they're making when they buy the product.
When you read the label, it's a straightforward stat revealing just how environmentally friendly the product is. But achieving those simple numbers is, I imagine, anything but.
How difficult was this for you to do?
It has been a major undertaking to calculate the carbon emission that you have on our product, the ingredients, where they come from, the transport cost to our factory, all the conversion of the product, all the storage costs, the distribution to the retailers, the fact that even the consumer gets the product, store it, cook it, and has to dispose of the packaging. So that's how complicated is the calculation.
So what role does the consumer play here?
One of the big reflections is it the role of the industry to change, or is it the role of the consumer to drive change? I actually believe it's both. So the role of producers, of a company like us, is really to be able to provide to the consumer the choice for them to make the right step, because every step together will then make the massive change.
But consumers are only able to make those intelligent choices if they have the information in front of them,
Absolutely.
which is what labeling is all about.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt that this is a radical move. But I have to wonder, what's the point if they're the only company doing it? Surely, to make an informed choice, consumers need to have other carbon labels to compare products.
What we decided to do is not to sit and wait for the world to change. We decided to take a first step. It is something that we are very, very proud of, because some of the other companies are now trying to follow, because it takes the whole industry to be able to drive the movement that we wanted to create.
I think Marco's right. To affect change, someone has to make the first move.
This idea is amazing, but things will only really make a difference if other companies, including their competitors, can be convinced to get on the bandwagon and adopt this as a kind of an industry benchmark. And the thing is, people are already starting to do it. So it really is a case of watch this space.
This kind of transparency is vital if consumers are going to be able to make informed decisions about how our food is produced, something we more often than not feel powerless about. But arguably, there's one part of the food chain right before our eyes that we have very real and practical influence over. As consumers, when it comes to waste, we really need to up our game.
Tell me about food waste. That's something else that seems to be really moving up the consumer agenda in recent years.
I think food waste might be the most difficult consumer challenge to address. 35% of food waste roughly is produced by households. The real challenge is prevention on the front end, is avoiding the food waste to begin with, taking the emphasis away from recycling and composting food, and figuring out how to shop more efficiently. Interestingly, a lot of the trends in online shopping have been very helpful in addressing food waste because consumers tend not to impulse buy. They tend to be more efficient about what they're ordering.
We produce enough food every year to feed the planet 1.5 times over. Yet every 10 seconds, someone dies due to starvation or malnutrition. Therefore, our food system must improve. While our farmers, food processors, manufacturers, and retailers can all do more, so crucially can the consumer. One idea that's starting to gain momentum across Europe is looking to protect highly perishable products from ending up as waste by helping the consumer and the retailer work together. Israeli company Wasteless has introduced a pioneering concept that's already showing the potential to bring down the numbers significantly.
The food system, where 1/3 of everything it produces is never consumed, is incredibly broken. In 2018, we started working with a large Spanish retailer in Madrid, where we managed to reduce food waste in retail by more than 1/3. Then in 2019, we worked with an Italian retailer, and there we managed to cut food waste in half.
With around 6% of the annual turnover of a supermarket evaporating through expired products, the Wasteless solution is looking to help both retailer and consumer. By using artificial intelligence, they've built a dynamic pricing algorithm that tracks the expiry date of fresh products, and using special digital barcodes, reduces the price accordingly.
Imagine you're going into your favorite supermarket and you have the choice of 2 sandwiches, one that expires in 2 days and one that expires in 5. So which one are you going to pick? Well, invariably, if you look at the dates, people are going to pick the longer, the item with the longer shelf life. However, the shorter expiring product is just as healthy, just as fresh, and just as high quality. So what we do is we find with artificial intelligence the optimal price points to make it attractive for a shopper to pay slightly less for a sandwich that you're going to eat within 20 minutes anyway. Retailers waste less, sell more, and are able to actually reward shoppers for conscious consumer behavior, and that's extremely important.
It's an idea that retailers have tried to harness over the years with daily markdowns on fresh products. But the capabilities of AI make dynamic pricing a potential game changer in food waste globally.
We've calculated that if all grocery retailers in the developed world would use dynamic pricing to prevent food waste, that together we could be reducing 500 gigatons of greenhouse gases annually. And 500 gigatons is about the annual output of the UK, so that's really substantial. Because food waste is such a massive problem and the damage it's wreaking on the planet is so substantial, we cannot wait to prevent food waste for policies. We cannot wait for food waste for new technologies. We have to use the innovations that are here today.
And dynamic pricing sounds like a really clever way of doing that. The consumer, the retailer, and producer, who we mustn't forget also loses out if the product goes to waste, together have a vested interest in making these ideas work.
You know, watching news footage or documentaries on the state of the planet can sometimes make you feel, well, a little bit powerless. Like, what can I, as just one individual, really do to make a difference on a planetary scale? Well, the good news is, if you've eaten today, you already have. Every time you make a food purchase, you're voting with your wallet, you're voting with your palate to slowly shift the agricultural system.
At every turn throughout my Follow the Food journey,
How's it going, Sarah?
What I've come to realize is that to create a secure food system for the future,
just agriculture as far as the eye can see,
that's prepared against climate change,
we are arriving to save around 70% of water.
That's astonishing.
A population boom.
Now, this isn't something you expect to see in the English countryside. Quinoa, kind of like a rice alternative, but you can get away with it in our climate.
Or even another global pandemic. It'll be the application of multiple solutions from farmers, scientists, retailers, and consumers, all working together, which will have the best chance of collectively making a difference.
Follow the Food, in association with Corteva Agriscience.
It's like going home again.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
There's no crying and yachting.
I know this group can get